Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another Football Manager experiment, where today we are looking at making Kenya a footballing powerhouse. We're going to look to give them the chance to develop their youngsters and see how high they can go in the rankings and what sort of achievements they can make. What we've done, of course, we've gone to the Kenyan Premier League and we have give every single team in there all the best youth recruitment, youth facilities, junior coaching, training facilities that there possibly can be. And we're going to see how they get on. They're currently sitting in 102nd in the world ranking. Who are they around in there? We'll have to scroll down a little bit to find them. You can see they're just above Trinidad, Tobago and Palestine, and just below the likes of Mauritania and Madagascar and Bahrain as well. So a very little bit of an interesting one. Let's take a look at the schedule though quickly. You can see this year they've got the World Cup qualifiers. We'll be going a few years ahead, so we'll be able to see kind of a couple of years on how things have gone. So let's jump ahead and just take a look at the moment and see how they get on. Okay, here we are then. We are 5 years on, 96th. So they have risen up the table from their, well, they were over the 100 mark, weren't they? Just above Trinidad and Tobago. But now they're doing okay. I've just lost them. Am I blind? I think I'm blind. I'm legally blind. There it is. 96th. Just behind Togo and Kyrgyzstan, now above Gabon. Still Trinidad, Tobago, and New Zealand. So improvements have been made. They've even reached the heights of 89th at one stage. So they're doing okay. Looking at the kind of national team, we can see there's not many players in any of the top teams. I'd say it's quite limited. But if we go into the schedule, can we have a look at how they've got on in any of these competitions? So the World Cup qualifying, it doesn't look like they managed to get through that. African Nations qualifying, again, not great. Lost to South Africa in the World Cup qualifiers as well there. And in the African Nations qualifiers, they've not done well either, leading to this next season that's coming up, where they've got Lesotho, Benin and Comoros in their group for the African nations. It would be nice to see them at least qualify for the African Cup of Nations. That's the starting point. We know where we stand with them at that stage. At the moment, though, it doesn't look like there's any big news. Their captain still Victor Wanyama, who's 34 years old now. And Michael Olunga's still their top player in the side. So we haven't seen any sort of development at this stage of any other players, but Mahad Matan is probably the only one that's really starting to come through. Playing for who's he playing for? Kakamega Homeboys. What a name of a team, by the way. And Porto are interested. So this is the sign of things to start to come for Kenya, and hopefully that will continue to develop. So let's jump ahead again and take a look if it continues. All right, so it is continued improvement. 82nd in the league now. That's where they sit anyway at the end of the season. Haiti and Suriname, El Salvador below them, Iraq, Northern Ireland, North Macedonia above. So they are certainly starting to climb those rankings and start to make a bit more of a name for themselves. This is the highest they've ever ranked, so that's good to see. And now we've got some more names involved here. We've got Mahad Matan, who we just saw, looks like a very, very good player. Moved to Wolfsburg. Striker, winger sort of player, nice and pacey, dribbling, first touch very good, maybe not as a striker because his finishing is poor. And the vice captain, Titus Saruni, again, doesn't look too bad. It looks like he stayed in Kenya though, which would be nice to see him move abroad. Clark Adur, is that a real player? Yes, it is. I don't know my Kenyan players well enough to be able to know by just looking at them, but Eliud Uyanga is one, plays for Tusker FC. Again, 25 years old, probably not the level you'd need really to really push on. But having the likes of Mahad Matan in there, certainly a player that looks pretty decent. Let's take a look though how things have developed. Okay, here we go. We're starting to see here African Cup of Nations qualifying. They've made it through that. Unfortunately, they did lose every game in their group in the African nations, but they've made it there, which is good to see. 3-2 to Congo, 3-0 to Mali, and 1-0 to Algeria. Then a World Cup qualifying against Tanzania. They did win that one. And then also the African qualifying group, they've managed to get a couple of wins in there against Egypt, Madagascar, draws against Tunisia and a loss. And World Cup qualifiers against Equatorial Guinea was a win. But ended up losing to Ghana. So there's been a few. It's a bit up and down for them. Made it to the African Cup of Nations again. Didn't make it out of the groups, but at least this time was able to get a win against Sierra Leone. Now 2-0 there. Lost to Morocco and Ghana though 3-0. So there's still a big gap between them and the top African nations. World Cup qualifying though, again a good win against Sierra Leone and Equatorial Guinea in there. African nations qualifying. Again, Equatorial Guinea beating them 3-0, Sudan losing 2-1 to Kenyan boys, and Nigeria beating them though both times they played. But certainly improvements. They get into the African nations a lot more now and a lot better. What sort of formation are they playing? They're playing a 4-4-2. Interesting. There's a few players in there that are the regens that we wanted to see. But again, let's jump further ahead, see how they do and how they get on. And it's further improvement. 71st now. They did make it even to 65th in the rankings, which is very good. But at the moment, 71st isn't too bad at all. Just below Paraguay, Slovenia, Iraq, above Israel, Saudi Arabia and Haiti. So there's some good sides there. Certainly nothing to turn your nose up at. Mahad Matan, still the key player in the side, still at Wolfsburg, looks very, very good. 6'4" as well. I didn't realise how tall he was. Absolute giant. Adam Masuta playing at Posta Rangers. There's still a lot of players still at clubs in Kenya, which is probably not great. Although it might be quite good considering that they're teams that have good facilities. I don't know. I don't know if that's something that would, how much that could help them, even if they're not playing in a fantastic league. But looking at this, they lost in the African Cup of Nations group stage again, losing all those games. Did manage to beat Cape Verde in the end, going through to an African Cup of Nations qualifying group, where they did win a few more. World Cup qualifiers, though, beat Algeria, losing to Congo 3-2. So they weren't quite able to make the World Cup this time round, but looks like they're getting closer and closer, that's for sure. We can see, where were we? Where did we jump from? We've jumped all over the shop here. I'm completely lost. Cape Verde, yes, we beat them. Then we had the qualifiers, there you go. Then they managed to make it out of the group of the African Cup of Nations. 2-1 to South Africa, but drew against Algeria and beat Benin. Took them through to the second round, where they only just lost to Ivory Coast. The talisman Mahad Matan scoring to get their only goal in that game. But looks like they put up a decent fight. World Cup qualifiers, though, they also managed to do very well in the group stage of the World Cup qualifiers, because they drew and beat Cameroon, beat Algeria, drew against Congo twice, and then beat Central African Republic in the African nations. I mean, this is quite impressive. They got to the World Cup. Oh my God. I was like, wait, there's other games against other teams, not African teams. Yes, they got to the World Cup. Unfortunately, it does look like they got battered in the first game, 6-0 to the United States, and only just lost to Slovakia. So that's not bad. They're at least they're making it to the World Cup. It's good to see. They did get out of the group at the African Cup of Nations. Unfortunately, losing to South Africa in the end in the first knockout round. But again, reaching the World Cup is massive. And they could do it again. They've beaten Swaziland 6-0 over the two legs. So certainly could do so. So we'll jump one more time, see if they can make it to the World Cup again, and see if they can do any better and how they're going to do in the African Cup of Nations, and of course, how the world rankings looked. And here we are then, another 5 years on, 2040 now, and they're in 60th position. That's quite the jump. Just behind Bosnia and Bulgaria, above Peru and Chile, so doing pretty well on that front. They've even hit higher at 54th position, so they have still continued to rise up. How are things going for the key players? So Abdi Adnan is the key player. I mean, he's not quite as good as previous players they've had as their top dog. So that's a bit of a shame. But with that said, we can take a look at the schedule. How have they got on over the last few years then? We can see African Nations qualifiers there, made to the group, obviously got knocked out there. We can then see in the African Nations qualifying group, 3-0 against Mauritius, 3-0 against Djibouti as well. I mean, some great wins here against Uganda. Cameroon losing 2-1 in the qualifiers, which is a shame. They do make it to the African Cup Nations group though, and make it through to the next round, only losing on penalties to Cameroon. So it's certain they are certainly improving. If we gave them more time, maybe they could continue to do good things. But I think we will be limited in what we can do. African Cup of Nations, they managed to beat Ivory Coast again, losing on penalties in the knockouts. I mean, it was a very good results for them in the group stage, but it looks like that is it. We're not going to be able to see them at a World Cup again. So they did make it to a World Cup, which is good to see. What sort of rankings in Africa are the Kenyan Premier League looking? 32nd, so nothing too fantastic there. It looks like Homeboys have won the league a few times. Posta Rangers, Tusker. So there's been a few different ones. So it's not all been one team, which is quite nice to see. But yeah, so I'd say that's not a bad result, really. I think Kenya's done pretty well. They managed to get to a World Cup, which I don't think they've ever managed before. So we've managed to get them to do that. But with that, we will leave it there. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel. And of course, I will catch you in the next one.